May I ask everyone to be upstanding to welcome the official party. The Honourable Gabriel Upton MP, Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier. Good. Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, AC, QC, Governor of New South Wales, and Mr. Dennis Wilson. Everyone, please be seated and put on your mask. Your Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, AC, QC, Governor of New South Wales, and Mr. Dennis Wilson. The Honourable Gabriel Upton MP, Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier. Distinguished guests, including in the ballroom of Government House tonight, DVCRs from this year's successful New South Wales universities, our winners and their guests. Joining us via live streaming telecast, distinguished guests from the diplomatic, academic and research communities, industry and the public services. Good evening and welcome to the 2021 New South Wales Premier's Prizes for Science and Engineering. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet this evening, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their leaders past, present and emerging. It's wonderful to be here tonight, and I will say it's interesting, we've not missed a beat. We came here last year, thank you very much, and this year, and of course in preceding years. So I think we've got the timing right, and you will notice we have the timing right on the weather as well. So well done, science community. I'm Hugh Darrant-White, I think you know that. I'm New South Wales Chief Scientist and Engineer. Government House has kindly ensured that our award ceremony today will be conducted in a manner that complies with the New South Wales Government COVID-19 health guidelines. At the conclusion of the ceremony, as you enjoy Her Excellency's hospitality, we would ask that you maintain social distancing. This includes occasions where photographs are taken. Please follow any advice or directions in this regard during the reception. The Premier's Prizes have been held since 2008. And I would actually also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge Mary O'Kane, who's in the audience, who's my predecessor, who founded the Premier's Prizes for Science. So it's nice to have you here this evening, Mary. It has become one of the most prestigious accolades for the research sector in New South Wales. Firstly, my sincere thanks to our patron, Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, Governor of New South Wales, and to both the Governor and Mr. Dennis Wilson for allowing us to hold these prizes at Government House after what has been, I think, a difficult year for many, many people. To the Premier of New South Wales, the Honourable Dominic Perrottet, MP, my thanks for his appreciation of the importance of science and engineering to the future prosperity of the state. Regrettably, the Premier is unable to join us tonight, but has pre-recorded an address. It's a great pleasure for me also to welcome the Honourable Gabriel Upton MP, Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier, who will represent the Premier and Minister Ayres to present the prizes tonight. Parliamentary Secretary Upton was the first female New South Wales Attorney General and has served as Minister for the Environment, Minister for Family and Community Services and Minister for Sport and Recreation. But most importantly this evening, she is a fierce advocate for supporting research and development in our state. As Parliamentary Secretary to the New South Wales Premier, Parliamentary Secretary Upton has been the driving force behind the Accelerating Research and Development Advisory Council, ARDAC's action plan, and is working closely with my office on the implementation of its recommendations, which I will discuss shortly. I would also like to welcome the Honourable Sarah Mitchell, MLC, who will present the Category 9 Prize for Innovation in STEM Teaching in New South Wales. The Minister is actually on an aeroplane at this point, but will be arriving soon following her flight. This year has been a challenging one, but also a year in which New South Wales has committed itself to research and development like never before. The ARDAC Action Plan was launched in January and provides New South Wales with a suite of priority and supporting actions that will collectively see our state turn its world-class research capabilities and ideas into new industries, jobs, products and services. Much is now underway from the Action Plan's recommendations. I will say It surprised me as I was reading these notes just how much has changed in the research world since only last year. First, the Small Business Innovation and Research Program was launched. This is a $24 million initiative providing competitive grants to small and medium-sized enterprises to find and commercialise innovative research solutions to well-defined problems for New South Wales Government. Examples include connectivity in remote and rural areas, navigation assistance to the visually impaired on public transport, quantifying the number and geography and spread of the New South Wales koala population. In addition, an ambitious R&D matchmaking platform is in development, tasked with better connecting researchers, sellers and buyers, and linking researchers to research infrastructure and entrepreneurial expertise. The first R&D mission will launch imminently. The mission has received $28 million of funding over 4 years for research and development of new and emerging industries and technologies to better prepare the state for bushfires. An emerging industry infrastructure fund has been established, targeting new and emerging industries. The first investment will be in a semiconductor partnership that will build existing industry and attract global companies and investments into New South Wales. There, of course, has been the establishment of Investment New South Wales, of which the Chief Scientist Office is now a very important part. And inside Investment New South Wales is R&D New South Wales, with responsibility and accountability for R&D activities and investment in New South Wales, including the delivery of the action plan, the New South Wales 20-year R&D roadmap, and many other things. My office has commissioned future industry reports which have contributed to this. The 2020 Australian Semiconductor Sector Study, which recommended the establishment of the Semiconductor Sector Service Bureau, now underway. And this year we released only just the New South Wales Power to X Industry Feasibility Study, in fact undertaken by previous Premier's Science Prize winner, Professor Rose Amal. This will form an important part and element of the New South Wales Government's new hydrogen strategy. The New South Wales research networks, also created by my office, have grown hugely in influence and number. The New South Wales Smart Sensing Network this year, I noticed the chair is here, has 10 active R&D projects and under management with about $10 million of R&D investment in critical areas from water sensing, defence, circular economy, environmental monitoring and health, and has launched its grand challenges in ageing and many other areas. The New South Wales Defence Innovation Network has attracted over $42 million in defence R&D projects to New South Wales in the past year. It's deepened its engagement with local and international defence industry and is engaging with more than 540 different R&D, defence, government and industry stakers, including major firms such as Airbus, Lockheed Martin and Thales. New South Wales Circular conducted a plastic waste recycling project with St Vincent's Hospital, which saw over 80,000 pieces of clinical plastic waste collected, much of this being recycled into new building materials by an Orange-based company with the help of UNSW's Smart Centre. 3 new research networks are under development, each of which will bring research, industry and government together. The Space Research Network, co-hosted by the University of Sydney and UTS and housed now at Tech Central, will tackle space challenges, translate vital research into commercial space products, attract investment, upskill graduates and drive growth in high-tech jobs. The Decarbonisation Innovation Hub will be announced very shortly, I hope, which will drive collaborations in critical sectors and increase the uptake of new decarbonisation technologies in New South Wales. And finally, the Connectivity Innovation Network, which my office has been developing in partnership with the Telco Authority. In addition to all of that, the $5 million New South Wales Physical Sciences Fund is now in its 3rd year. The PSF aims to deliver significant societal, economic and environmental benefits to New South Wales by providing financial support for the development of new innovative devices and systems within New South Wales. And in fact, on that note, we had a meeting, I think it was only yesterday, one of the companies that we supported that is creating a fantastic set of ground station antennas that can communicate with hundreds of satellites at the same time. Truly amazing technology. And making those companies into a form where they can actually be invested in by private equity. This year's successful funding recipients will be announced, I think, next week. And the office has also led the partnership linking all our universities and medical research institutes together to establish an RNA manufacturing alliance, and the establishment, which you'll have seen the funding announcement for a $94 million RNA pilot manufacturing facility in New South Wales. We believe not only will it help build our research in this state, but it will enable us to attract and build a major new industry around RNA therapeutics. My office also continues to deliver a lot of important policy advice to government this year on issues ranging from energy security to energy from waste. One of perhaps the most important outcomes this year has been the release of open source genomic data to help the state in its management of the koala population. And I'm proud to say, finally, after several years, we have finally landed an outcome for the vexing issue of the number of brumbies in the Kosciuszko National Park. I am pleased to no longer be on that committee, I will tell you. You can see we have had a fantastic year. It goes on and on and on. The additional funding this year, the additional programs, the engagement with universities, the universities as partners in government programs, the engagement we have with industry, it is truly a huge change from where we were only last year ago. It's been very busy, very productive, and I'm looking forward to the end of the year. So, nice to have you all here for this program. I would now like to invite our patron for the evening, the Governor of New South Wales, to address us. Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, AC, QC, was appointed Governor on the 2nd of May 2019, following a long and distinguished career in the law. Appointed Queen's Counsel in 1989, in 1993 she was made a Judge of the Federal Court of Australia, the first woman to sit exclusively in that court. In 1996, she achieved the distinction of being the first woman appointed to the New South Wales Court of Appeal and subsequently as the first woman to be appointed as its president. She served on a number of occasions as Administrator of the Government of the State of New South Wales. She was made a Companion of the Order of Australia in the Australia Day Honours List in January 2020 for eminent services to the people of New South Wales. And for us, I want to point out she has been an absolute supporter for science and research and its outcomes in this state, and for that I thank her greatly. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley.
Thank you, Hugh. We don't get into all this formality stuff, I don't think, do we? Certainly between not only friends, but extraordinarily eminent friends. To all of you, Bujiri Gamarua, Dian Babana, Gamarada, Gadigal Ngara. Greetings in the language of the Gadigal people on whose land this house stands, and we are gathered here today, and as we also look out onto the beautiful Gadigal waters. And I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Hugh made the point, almost at the commencement of his introduction this evening, that how quickly things have moved in the last 12 months, particularly in scientific research and development. But of course, all organisations, all disciplines require a constancy. And just to demonstrate the constancy with which your community and these awards in particular have maintained over the years, and particularly over this last 12 months, I would like to ask you to turn to the last page of your program. And as for the constancy, you will see, to my horror, that the jacket's the same. The badge is in exactly the same place. Hugh wasn't able to find his tie tonight. He brings it out once a year for these particular awards. Professor Holmes, now, if he took that mask off, he would not have discarded that smile that he's been wearing for the last year, not only since being our winner, our Scientist of the Year, but also the Australian Scientist of the Year. So congratulations for that also, Eddie. I was present during the course of today at 2 international conferences. At one of those conferences, which was on legal education, I posed this question. Why do scientists win Nobel Prizes and lawyers gain notoriety? As a mere lawyer, I don't actually think that's terribly fair. I think lawyers play a very distinguished part in the community. But lawyers, at the end of the day, are followers of what goes on in the community. Scientists, researchers are innovators. You are the groundbreakers. You are the change makers in our world. And it is you that we are here to celebrate today. And it is why Dennis and I are really so delighted to be in this room with you. The governors of New South Wales, as you might gather from those very heavy portraits which are out there in the hallway, have had a very strong military tradition. There's been one other lawyer, Gordon Samuels. There's been one medical person, of course, Murray Bashir. But there has actually been a scientist. And that was a scientist who arrived in Australia on my birth date, I have to tell you. I'm a lawyer, I have to be very specific in the way I put things. So on my birth date, his birth date is my birth date, 23rd of July, very important day in the calendar of Government House events. He arrived here in 1821, but he was an astronomer. And he built Australia's very first observatory out at Parramatta. He mapped the southern skies, the first published mapping of the southern skies, doing it, of course, in the Western tradition and not in the Indigenous tradition. And he also really was very innovative in the development of agriculture in this state or in this colony at the time. And it's those things, it's that love of science, it's that sense of quest, that sense of inquiry, and the innovation and the application of the innovation, which is this room is full of tonight. And it's that we celebrate. As I said, nothing much happened scientifically between the governors between 1821 and 2021. But what has happened in the last 2 years is the impact of science and scientists on our community. We've had a pandemic that we would not have survived as well as we have were it not for the work of the scientist. And again, to have Professor Holmes in the room as we celebrate that fact is really quite extraordinary. But it is all of your work, the fact that you're in that field, and it was your advice that took us through. It was the innovations and the development and the very quick application and implementation of the vaccines. And it wasn't only the actual science within that, but it was also the underlying technology which has been able to get us through so well. And I'm talking, of course, about the tracing. And like I said, lawyers don't do that. It's the scientists, it's the statisticians, it's those who study mathematics who have really underpinned our society in the last 2 years, which brought us out of a pandemic very quickly and has kept us pretty safe, notwithstanding the hiccup of the Delta strain, and which I'm sure we all have confidence we will live well with the latest strain, notwithstanding the fact that not a great deal is yet known about it. One of the reasons why I'm wearing this jacket is because I looked at tonight's brochure in my office on a printout, on a black and white printer. And it wasn't particularly, if I'd looked at the pattern, I would have got it. But I was actually so much more concerned with the content of what was in that brochure. And the content is all about you. And what is striking about what we're here to celebrate tonight is the breadth and the depth of the scientific research that we're here to celebrate. And we cannot, of course, leave out, and this has become such an important part and will continue to be an important part of these awards, is the education Award. I've had a conversation with the former Secretary of the Department, and as he said at the time, unless we improve STEM education, and most particularly, unless we improve STEM education for girls, women will remain the underpaid and the disadvantaged section of our community. And as I look around this room tonight, and as I know who our recipients, are, you know, as much as I know, that we cannot afford that to happen. So very much the future of our country is in your hands. So what I would like to say to you tonight, and to say what it is that we celebrate, it's the excellence in scientific and engineering and medical research. And it is that excellence that we need to acknowledge, we need to reward, we need to support, we need to bring it to fruition, and we need to create the circumstances in which your excellence, and I'm not talking only about expertise, I am talking about your excellence. What we need is for that excellence to be a magnet for investment into Australia in the areas in which you work. It's an investment in something that we in Australia do so well. It's collaboration, but the magnet is back into Australia. It's not a magnet which is pointing and rejecting in the other direction. All young people need to go overseas. All young people need to discover what is going on overseas. But it's what we develop here which is going to ensure that we remain a community of excellence. And you, the scientists, are going to take the whole of Australia forward. Congratulations. Thank you for your work. It's not easy work. You don't get there by being out surfing every day. We do know that. But having you here tonight, just think you're gliding on that wave and you've arrived here and we're here to celebrate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think in New South Wales, you'll have seen we have a new Premier. And as we've seen in the reasonably short time that he's been in office, this is a leader who is firmly placing his trust in the state's research sector to overcome the challenges we face and take our state forward into a stronger, prosperous future. Already on the new Premier's watch, we have seen important announcements made establishing New South Wales as a national leader in clean energy, in developing new medicines, and in combating our current health crisis. Unfortunately, the Premier is unable to join us tonight, but has recorded a message which we will now play.
Hello everyone, I'm sorry I can't be there to celebrate with you in person, but I want to wish you all the very best for a wonderful evening. Tonight we recognise exceptional achievements in science and engineering in our state. If there was ever any doubt, the last 2 years have shown us how critical these fields are to our society and our people. Here in New South Wales, we've been tested by droughts, bushfires, floods and a pandemic. But the challenges we faced have only ever served to highlight the wealth, talent and experience we have in New South Wales. Tonight is our opportunity to recognise your achievements. You've served our community so well, particularly during this crisis. You push the boundaries to make the impossible possible. You create business opportunities and jobs so others can build better lives for themselves and their families. You solve the problems of today and imagine the possibilities of tomorrow. And our government deeply values the work that you do. We also recognise the importance of science and engineering to our state's future, and that's why we are building a world-class science and technology precincts. We're supporting cutting-edge research and connecting ideas with industrial might to bring them to the market and take them to the world. And we were all doing that before the pandemic reached our shores. But the COVID-19 experience has helped us to see even more clearly the untapped potential and the enormous opportunities that lie ahead in the fields of science and engineering in New South Wales. And we know that you will be key in helping us realise them. Tonight's award celebrates excellence across the whole spectrum of disciplines. They honour great teachers, innovators and researchers. And every recipient has made a real difference to our community. Your achievements do us all very proud, and they give us the hope and belief that the future of our state will be brighter. You are the trailblazers, leading the way for that next generation of great minds to make the world a better place, starting here in New South Wales. So best of luck tonight. Congratulations to all the winners, and I hope you have a really fantastic evening.
Thank you. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm very pleased to have Gabrielle Upton here this evening. Gabrielle Upton has worked very, very closely with my office now over 2 years to really deliver an amazing outcome, amazing changes for, I think, R&D and R&D commercialisation in the state. We work closely together on the RDAC Action Plan recommendations, as I previously mentioned, and to ensure the best outcomes for New South Wales. Really trying to create new jobs, new companies, new opportunities, new applications for everyone here. So before she presents the prizes, I will call on Parliamentary Secretary Upton to address us. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Good evening, everybody. It's just delightful to be here. And when the Premier wasn't able to attend, I was able to go, me, I want to be there. I did want to acknowledge, of course, Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACQC, Governor of New South Wales, and a real champion for science and research. We should be very thankful that we have her. She has an intimate knowledge of science and research and takes every opportunity to engage with our community across New South Wales. To Dennis Wilson, thank you very much for hosting us in your home. To my colleague, the Honourable Sarah Mitchell, who's made considerable effort to be here tonight and who just came in through the side door. We know as a regional minister that you travelled, particularly as Education Minister. These awards are close to your heart, and thank you for the significant effort you've made to be here tonight. To my co-collaborator, Hugh Durrant-White, what an exceptional person to be able to communicate across the science and engineering communities and into government about the importance of research and its translation. And I did want to also acknowledge Professor Mary O'Kane, who's here, who was Hugh's predecessor, who's been a collaborator as well. And we both, Hugh and I, work very closely with her as she continues to contribute to our work across government. Most importantly, of course, is to those of you who are the winners here tonight, to your family, to your colleagues, all of those on whose shoulders you stand as the award winners tonight. We celebrate you so sincerely. Well, Hugh mentioned tonight that I think a real watershed inside the New South Wales Government has been the work that I have had pride in leadership, but of course the co-collaboration of so many people in government to ensure not only that we nurture and invest in research and knowledge for knowledge's sake, which is something we must do. You better than anybody know that perhaps we don't know where that knowledge will take us, but we're relying on you to find solutions to problems perhaps we as a government don't even know that we have. I think where our government, and you would have heard the Premier speak tonight, in whose big shoes I stand, now realises probably more than he might have over the 10 years that we've been, or 11 years we've been in government now, the economic power of the translational capacity of research that we have in our community. We've seen that in evidence, of course, through the COVID pandemic. We've seen it help our ministers of government making key decisions around the rats on Lord Howe Island and how to eradicate them, and I notice that 2 of our award winners here have had important input into some of those solutions. Whether it be our bushfires and how we're going to tackle them indeed as we did during the black fire season, or indeed how we're going to tackle them going forward. You are doing the thinking that we need, often when we don't know that we need it. And inside of government now, under the action plan that Hugh spoke to today, we have over $60 million that's been purposed across a programmatic response. But I think even more important than that is the ripple across government that has actually created. And I know from my discussions directly with the Premier and with the Treasurer that they value the translational power of the work that you do. So many of our award winners here tonight, in particular the Scientist of the Year, who we know who is, but I'm going to allow that to be officially announced, has worked in that translational field. And I did also want to acknowledge him, of course, Jim, if I can call you Jim, and to Dig Howard, of course, who's the CEO of Cochlear, who is here with us tonight. You are doing amazing things for our community. Please continue to do what you do. We know this is a passion that you have. You don't just go to bed at night and forget about those grants that you're making applications for, or the support you might need for government, or indeed the persistence that I encourage you to have, knocking on our doors in government to say you have the solutions to problems we don't even know as policy makers exist. Again, I'm so pleased to have joined you here tonight. Congratulations to all of you, in particular your supporters, your loved ones, your carers, your kids who couldn't be here with us tonight because of the space constrictions. But it's my great pleasure to be here on behalf of the New South Wales Government, together with my colleague Sarah Mitchell, to present those awards to you tonight. Thank you.
Gabrielle, if you could stand in the middle. I think probably without your mask. Now we have to just work out the social distancing pieces here. When your name is read out, please remove your mask and come up to receive your Premier's Prize from the Parliamentary Secretary. As you receive your trophy and a photograph together, I will read a short description of why you are adjudged a winner in the category, and then you may resume your seat and put your mask back on. But in receiving it, please just try and maintain a little bit of social distance. That's all. Okay, I think I've got all the rules right, just checking on that. So first, it's my pleasure to announce the winner of the category in excellence in mathematics, earth science, chemistry or physics, which is Professor Shujun Zhang from the University of Wollongong. Professor Shujun Zhang is a material scientist whose research is producing high-performance ferroelectric materials for use in next-generation ultrasonic medical imaging and diagnostics. These materials can also be used in thermal imaging to detect and monitor bushfires at large scale, with clear application for bushfire management. Other applications of his research include energy harvesting and high-power energy storage. In 2020, he was elected as a Fellow of the US Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Congratulations again. In Category 2, Excellence in Biological Sciences, Ecology, Environmental, Agricultural and Organismal, I better get that right, Professor Peter Steinberg from the University of New South Wales, Sydney. Professor Peter Steinberg is one of the founders of the field of marine chemical ecology and a leader in the integration of macrobiology and environmental microbiology. In recent years, he's become increasingly focused on building resilience into coastal systems faced with rapid environmental change. Peter's work has had a major lasting impact on New South Wales' national and global marine environments. He developed a model for disease in seaweeds that has been adopted internationally. He directs the World Harbour Project, which has led to the Living Seawells project, transforming seawalls across Sydney Harbour and elsewhere. Peter, of course, is also very well known and much valued as director of the Sydney Institute for Marine Science from 2009 to 2020. Thanks very much, Peter. Category 3, Excellence in Medical and Biological Sciences, Cell and Molecular, Medical and Veterinary and Genetics. This goes to Scienta Professor Gregory Dorr. Accepting the award tonight, though on behalf of Greg, is Scienta Professor John Kaldor, senior academic at the Kirby Institute, and in a very nice touch, John actually supervised Greg's PhD, as he also did for our Category 5 winner tonight, so we'll get to that in a minute. Greg Dorey is head of the Viral Hepatitis Clinic Research Program at UNSW, Sydney's Kirby Institute, and an infectious diseases physician at Sydney's St Vincent Hospital. Greg is internationally recognised in the area of hepatitis C virus, natural history and epidemiology, therapeutic strategies for acute and chronic HCV infection, and particularly among people who inject drugs. Greg established the St Vincent Hospital Viral Hepatitis Service in 1999 and has led its development into one of the leading national and international hepatitis treatment services. He has been involved in the COVID-19 response, including as chief investigator of the post-COVID ADAPT study. Thank you very much, John, I think, rather than Greg. Category 4, Excellence in Engineering or Information and Communications Technology. It's my great pleasure this award goes to Professor Fang Chen, a very old friend of mine. Thank you very much. University of Technology, Sydney. Distinguished Professor Fang Chen creates innovative solutions that use machine learning algorithms to extract knowledge from data. Some of Fang's most impactful work focuses on urban water supply networks, where water main failures can cause service disruption or temporary flooding. Fang has applied pioneering machine learning methods to predict pipe failures across 30 utilities worldwide. In New South Wales, since December 2019, the water pipe failure prediction tool developed by Fang detects leaks and breaks, which are the equivalent of 1,200 Olympic-sized swimming pools and 8 million in lost water a year. If applied across Australia, Global Water Intelligence estimates her solutions could save us 700 million per year in repairs and maintenance. Thank you again, Fang. Category 5, New South Wales Early Career Researcher of the Year. I will say I like the early career categories. It's really great to see such young people doing such amazing things. So these are always the most hotly contested areas, I think, of the awards ceremony. So firstly, New South Wales Early Career Researcher of the Year for Biological Sciences. I'm pleased to announce Dr. Louise Causa. Louise is an NHMRC Early Career Fellow at the Kirby Institute and has been pivotal in introducing point-of-care testing for sexually transmitted infections, STIs, in remote healthcare services, infections which, if left untreated, have unacceptably high rates of adverse reproductive health outcomes. In 2013, new molecular-based diagnostic technology was developed that allowed same-day diagnostics and treatment of STIs. Louise's research was the first to demonstrate that this technology could be successfully operated by Aboriginal health workers in remote areas. Louise coordinated the evaluation of a cluster randomised trial which showed the technology substantially improved clinical practice and patient outcomes. Louise has also led the scale-up of this technology into clinical practice, which has been sustained for over 4 years. Point-of-care testing is now recommended in the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander STI strategy. Congratulations again, Louise. Category 6, the New South Wales Early Career Researcher of the Year in Physical Sciences. This goes to Associate Professor Rona Chandrawati. Rona Chandrawati from UNSW in Sydney is an emerging global leader in nanosensors and nanoparticle-based drug delivery and Australia's leading researcher in colorimetric polymer sensing technology. Rona's unique nanosensors allow for food spoilage and contamination to be detected without specialised equipment, on-site or at home, providing results using colour changes visible to the naked eye. In agriculture, Rona's sensors allow rapid detection of a key indicator of bovine mastitis, one of the most difficult veterinary diseases to control. This has significant economic and animal welfare and human health benefits to the New South Wales and Australian dairy industry. In medicine, Rona's synthesis of nanoparticles and nanozymes for nitric oxide delivery have significant therapeutic implications, particularly in treating glaucoma, which affects 1 in 10 Australians. Congratulations again, Rona. Category 7, Leadership in Innovation in New South Wales. This year, it's awarded to Professor Richard Bryant, AC, from UNSW, Sydney. Scientia Professor Richard Bryant is the world's leading authority in early psychological responses to traumatic events. He has identified the core factors that occur after trauma and that influence long-term trajectories of mental health, as well as developing early interventions to manage anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Richard's Traumatic Stress Clinic is the largest treatment centre in Australia and has helped New South Wales become the first jurisdiction in the world to reduce PTSD in first responders, generating a mental health strategy for survivors of bushfire. In a world first, Richard adapted his early treatment protocol to develop a brief program delivering via video conferencing to meet social distance needs and include regional workers in New South Wales. This is the first program of its type in the world to address the mental health effects of the pandemic and is shaping programs in Europe and in India. Congratulations again, Richard. Category 8, Innovation in Public Sector, Science and Engineering. And unusually here, there are 2 winners in this category this year, recognised for their work on Lord Howe Island's rodent eradication program. Nicholas Carlisle from the New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment. Nicholas Carlisle is recognised as an expert on Lord Howe Island seabirds. Together with Terry O'Dwyer, he has provided scientific leadership and expertise for the island's rodent eradication program. Prior to the program, Nicholas worked with the research team to determine the impacts of rodents on seabirds, land birds and invertebrates. With Terry, he showed the efficacy of the proposed bait. Together with Terry and the program team, he brought over 50% of the Lord Howe currawongs into captivity and coordinated the capture of 85% of Lord Howe woodhens for safekeeping during baiting. I might also invite now the second award winner, Dr. Terence O'Dwyer, to the stage, also from the Department of Planning and Industry. Terry O'Dwyer is a senior scientist with DPI, where his research plays a crucial role in the ecology restoration of islands in New South Wales. Together with Nicholas Carlisle, he developed a comprehensive plan to protect the unique fauna of Lord Howe Island during the baiting phase of this globally seminal conservation program. Terry managed the non-target mitigation and monitoring plan, which ensured that there were no significant impacts on any native fauna, many of which are now flourishing since the completion of the program. The plan has been recognised internationally. Both Terry and Nicholas have subsequently been consulted for their other eradication projects, such as the proposed rodent eradication on Warrakawa in the Torres Strait and the current mouse eradication project on Gough Island in the South Atlantic. Congratulations again, both Terence and Nicholas. I am very pleased that Minister Mitchell has arrived, and she is here, of course, at each of our awards ceremonies. So we really, really do appreciate her support of the program here, no matter the flight conditions and the speed with which she had to get here. So thank you very much. Category 9 is our award for excellence in science, technology, engineering or mathematics teaching in New South Wales. As the Governor mentioned at the very beginning, this is a hugely important area. It's one that we really all need to understand how we can give back to our community and how we can raise the next generation of scientists, particularly women in our society and girls that we teach. The winner this evening is Cassandra Portelli from Hunter School of Performing Arts. Cassandra Portelli goes above and beyond to engage students in learning real-world mathematics skills. Outside of school, Cassandra commits her time to support the professional development of other mathematics teachers and has driven policy change right across Australia. She leads the Newcastle Mathematics Educators Community and Mathematical Association of New South Wales Newcastle Cluster, ensuring mathematics teachers have access to quality professional learning and mentoring. Cassandra was an inaugural winner of the Choose Maths Award and a recipient of the Premier's Financial Literacy Scholarship. She has implemented a nationwide Global Money Week Financial Literacy Challenge, and recently her recommendation to host a Treasurer's Financial Literacy Challenge was adopted. Congratulations again, Cassandra, and thank you, Minister Mitchell, for being here. We very much appreciate it. And now this evening's major award, the New South Wales Scientist of the Year for 2021, is James Finlay Patrick AO, Chief Scientist Emeritus at Cochlear Limited and Adjunct Professor at Macquarie University. Gabrielle. Yes. It's my great pleasure to announce James, we all will call him Jim Patrick, for this award. I think he has contributed in a significant way to so much development in Australia around cochlear implants. James Patrick is a world-leading authority on cochlear implants. Together with Graham Clark, he is one of the original engineers who pioneered the development of the multi-channel cochlear implant. Jim joined Clark's research team at Melbourne University in 1975 with a training in physics and communication engineering and an interest in how electrical stimulation might be used to help people hear. He led the successful development of the UMDOLI, I can't pronounce that correctly, I'm sure you will, a 10-channel cochlear implant. When the UMDOLI proof of concept generated Commonwealth Government support for commercial development in 1981, Jim wisely moved to Sydney as a member of the Cochlear Tiger team to develop a clinically applicable cochlear implant. Jim was responsible for systems engineering and the digital aspects of the implantable stimulator, playing a key leadership role in the development of the commercial medical implant. From 1981 to 2016, Jim was a member of Cochlear's senior management team, holding a number of technology management roles, including responsibility for R&D, quality and manufacturing. He was recently responsible for Cochlear's global research program, exploring how novel forms of signal processing can improve the performance of the cochlear implant, and how advances in biology and electroneural interfaces can be applied to future implant designs. Jim has also been involved in several projects that seek to use cochlear technology in other medical bionics fields. These include the treatment of spinal cord injuries, the use of an implanted stimulator to provide sensory feedback for people using artificial hands, and the use of an implanted stimulator to provide pacing, vestibular stimulation to relieve disease symptoms. Jim retired from Cochlear in December 2016, but continues to contribute in an emeritus role. He has received significant recognition and awards during his career. He was named in 2007 on Australia's list of most influential engineers. He was named Engineering Icon for the cochlear implant by the Warren Centre for Advanced Engineering. He won the 2014 David Dewhurst Award for Biomedical Engineering, and 2015 received the ATSE Clunas-Ross Lifetime Achievement Award for the application of science and technology for the benefit of Australia. In 2015, he received the Order of Australia for Distinguished Services to Science through the development of the cochlear implant technology. And in 2017, received the Samuel F. Leinberger Award for Achievements in Industry by the American Academy of Audiology. Jim is named as an inventor on 37 families of patents. He has been invited to present at numerous conferences on topics associated with cochlear implants and has contributed 11 book chapters and 44 peer-reviewed papers. I would like now to invite Jim to say a few words, and we'll all listen to your great wisdom. Thank you. Jim.
Well, thank you very much. Your Excellency, Mr Wilson, Minister Mitchell, Parliamentary Secretary Upton, Chief Scientist Engineer, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm going to say now is going to be a little bit repetitive, but I've got some little twists to put as I go through it. Basically, the story of how I've spent a long time. This is a wonderful award, and it's a great honour to receive it. And I feel that really I'm accepting it on behalf of the extraordinary people who've accompanied me on my journey over the past 45 years. Firstly, Graham Clark and the Department of Otolaryngology at the University of Melbourne, and then at Cochlear in Sydney and around the world. And unfortunately, I just don't have time to thank everyone individually. I joined Graham Clark's team as an electrical engineer with a lot of practical experience building electronic circuits. I'd started when I was 10 years old, building what was known then as a crystal set, where you receive broadcasts and just have a wire in the ear and no batteries. It's really how you get energy to make the ear hear. And later I became an active developer of ham radio equipment. Talking with Graham in a job interview in 1975, when I thought I was close to completing my PhD studying data transmission techniques, which never actually got finished, I really got interested in exploring how the human auditory system could respond to electrical stimulation. And I then joined his team, stopped the PhD, and helped with the design and construction of our experimental cochlear implant system. This is in the late 70s. And soon after we'd implanted our first profoundly deaf volunteer, Rod Saunders, we learnt that a group in Paris had applied for a patent for their own multi-electrode cochlear implant. And we just couldn't believe it. Here we were working, trying to help something to help humanity, and there was someone really causing trouble, making things more difficult. How naive we were, I have to say. That's how it was back then. We learned from the National Institutes for Health in the US that indeed to have a commercial success resulting from your research, you really had to protect and continuously update intellectual property. And patents are the essential heart to the intellectual property. And so we learnt from that. So Rod became deaf in his mid-40s as a result of a car accident. He had normal hearing, and then overnight he was profoundly deaf. And he made an enormous personal contribution to our program. He came into the clinic for half a day, for 3 days a week, for a couple of years. Really extraordinary personal commitment. Our early studies showed that by analysing speech and then using the data to directly stimulate the auditory nerve, the cochlear implant could significantly improve his lip reading, which was pretty terrible without it. He could hardly understand anything, and then he hardly missed a word. And that led to funding from the Australian Government for the development of a clinical implant system by a team in Paul Trainor's nucleus group of companies in Lane Cove. And in '81, I moved to Sydney as a technology transfer, they called me, from University of Melbourne, being the first member of the team that then became known as Cochlear Limited. So my first role, as you just heard, in Cochlear was being responsible for digital aspect to the design of the new implant system, and then I became very involved in manufacturing and later in clinical evaluation and research studies, and some work with the quality side as well. Our pilot clinical study had just six subjects in Australia, but it had a very positive outcome, and the Australian Government agreed to fund a study in the US that resulted in FDA approval of the device in 1985. So we then set up, and of course we went to America first because that was English speaking, and we could use our same test materials we developed in Australia. We set up test studies in Europe and later in Asia, with support from the leaders of many of the leading hearing research groups around the world, providing data from those studies that was then used to obtain regulatory approval and subsequently allow commercial release around the world. So over the years, our continuing technology development and R&D programs, with now more than 100 collaborating institutions around the world, has improved both the performance of the implant and its usability. So remember, we started with something that helped lip reading. Well, now children who are born with no hearing can have all the opportunities of normal hearing children, normal education, normal language development. And adults that lose their hearing can use a cochlear implant now for normal conversation, maintaining social connections, which is really important to keeping the mental activities running, and they can use the telephone. So the external processor, when we started, was a binocular-sized case worn on the waist, on the belt, and now it's like a little behind-the-ear hearing aid held in place by a magnet. So these continuing improvements, applying technology to more science to improve the products, has kept Cochlear as a global leader, as the global leader in implantable hearing, with all intellectual property having appropriate protection, I can say now. Yeah, you heard about the number of patents I've got. Cochlear is now in a top 50 ASX listed company with annual sales of around $1.5 billion. So it's commercially very successful, and it helps New South Wales as a result, being based in Sydney. So Cochlear's global headquarters has moved from Lane Cove, where we still have a manufacturing facility, to Macquarie University, and Macquarie is now one of our closest research collaborators. So Cochlear's been a great place to work with many exceptional staff. I'd like to thank Dig Hout, who's here in the audience, currently President and CEO, as their representative here tonight. Really a wonderful group to work with. Thank you, Dig. So it's been a truly wonderful journey, and one that would not have been possible without sustained support of my wife, Deirdre, also in the audience. So many months overseas, decade after decade. Really my role involved talking to lots of collaborators. Thank you, Deirdre, so much. So it's been very rewarding to see the impact of our cochlear implant and other implantable hearing devices on the lives of adults, children, families. We have meetings periodically where we have thousands of people coming along with implants, their families. So you see what happens, how the people are helped. And as Cochlear says, here now and always. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you again, Jim. I will say also, as you know, I chair the Medical Devices Fund, and many of the people, the new companies that come through that, are usually alumni of your skills and experience. So it's wonderful to see. Thank you again, Jim. Well, we come to the end of the proceedings. Thank you so much, everyone. Can I now ask everyone to be upstanding for the departure of the official party? Can I ask that the Governor and Mr Wilson, Minister Mitchell and Parliamentary Secretary Upton please move to the main staircase for the official photography. Thank you.